Good evening, Georgia State University alumni, family, and friends. On behalf of the Alumni Association, I'm excited to welcome you all to Home Buying and Selling 101, the amazing experience with Rebecca Ammazi. Rebecca studied middle childhood education in the College of Education here at GSU and graduated in 2014. She began teaching and in a short amount of time was honored with the Most Outstanding Teacher Award. Rebecca knew she had always been passionate about educating people and helping people, but she decided her focus wasn't with the young people. So she left her teaching job and began a new adventure into real estate by working in a leasing office. Fast forward 6 years, and she hasn't looked back. It's my pleasure to introduce experienced realtor and broker, Rebecca Ammazi.
Hi, good evening, Jenny, and hello, Georgia. Hi, and hello, Georgia State University alumni, students, and friends. It is my pleasure to be here with you tonight to speak on an issue that I think everybody has been interested to hear about and to be able to present for Georgia State. I'm very excited about it. But welcome to Home Buying and Selling 101. Let's get started. Welcome. So we're going to go through what we're going to talk about tonight. Next slide, if you can, Jenny. Thank you so much. So what to expect this evening? We're going to go over Home Buying 101. We're going to go step by step. So literally from the genesis of the process to literally the closing table. We're going to do Home Selling 101. So if you have a house to sell, or maybe you're thinking about selling a house, or maybe your parents' house possibly, we're going to go through what it means to decide to sell and then how the process is going to go. And then we're going to end at the question and answer portion of the evening. All right, so I wanted to start off at home buying because I feel like, for our, crowd and our generation, this is something that has been in talks over the last, I would say, 10 years and being kind of pushed in our faces. And now it's something that, people are ready to do, but they have a lot of questions about. So let me go ahead and start. Choosing your realtor. The reason why I want to put that first is because I definitely believe that you should definitely use a realtor. You may know some people who didn't use a realtor, and they might say, you know what, you don't need to use a realtor. But the reason why I say you should is because, one, it's free, literally no fee. The seller is who pays the buyer's agent if you're buying a home. So you really do not have to pay your agent anything to start. So why not take the free help? You want to make sure that your realtor is professional. We as realtors are held to a certain code that other real estate professionals are not. There are people that can get licensed as realtors, and then people who are licensed as real estate agents. You always want a realtor because we're held to a higher code of ethics. Also, too, you make sure realtor is knowledgeable and experienced, and that truly just comes with time. You want to make sure they at least have, I would say, at least 2 to 3 transactions under their belt, because that's really where you learn how to advocate for your client, and also to how to, take care of the back office things that you guys don't see, such as contracts. So you want to make sure this is not their first transaction, because you want them to walk you through it versus you two walking through it together. Or if there's multiple people, you want them to be able to guide you and your family members or your friends versus you kind of leaning on the internet to answer any questions for you. You want them to be your first person to go to. Next, fundamentals are the building blocks of fun. So when I was a teacher, I used to tell my students this: in order for us to have fun, have recess, we have to be able to get the fundamentals down. So first things first is the buyer brokerage agreement. It is a contract, and it is something that I feel like as millennials, and if you're not millennial, excuse me, but we're kind of finicky about contracts. We're like, you want me to sign my name where, for how much, and for what? It's not about that. All it is saying that I choose you, Rebecca, or whoever, to represent me in this major transaction, and that's it. For how I am as an agent, I allow my clients. I say, listen, if you feel like our working relationship isn't working for you anymore, I like an amicable relationship, and I like it to be extremely organic and not forced at all. So if you decide you don't want to work with me anymore, I require them to just send me something in writing saying so, and that's it. Some agents, they might keep you until you close, which I don't think is fair, but that is what that agreement is for. It's just to say, hey, you and I are both working with each other. Applying for your home loan, very, very, very important. I am a window shopper. Maybe some of you are as well too. And what that means is I'll go on Zillow, Realtor.com, and I'll just be looking for houses and searching. And I'm like, you know what? I like it. So I like that. Then I'll go apply for my loan. And then I'm like, this doesn't represent what I was looking at online. So that's why you want to apply for your home loan first, because you want to know what you can afford. It is so disheartening to look at what you really like and then be able to see what you can afford and it be less. It's not fun. I always say that, I have champagne taste, but I'm on a free water budget. So I always want the best of the best, but sometimes, we can't afford that. So we want to be sure that what we're looking at aligns with the number that we're approved for. So the search and your expectations. So it is important. It is very, very, very important that you let your realtor know exactly what you're looking for. The criteria truly matters. So if you need a parking garage, or if you need a parking garage or a garage at your house and you do not want to just be parking out on the street because of safety reasons, especially nowadays, let your agent know that, because if they don't know that, they're going to be sending you a whole bunch of houses with, they're going to send you whatever fits the other criteria. So if something doesn't fit your criteria, make sure that you let them know exactly what you're looking for. You want to let them know your non-negotiables. So if you don't want to be on, you want to be in the perimeter, then let them know that. If you want your commute to work to be a certain amount of time, oh, I love this part, what I'm about to say. Send me your job. I don't know how far work is from where you want to live. So please show me, like, this is my route to work so we can figure it out. So it's very important to let your realtor know just what you want in your home and what your expectations are. Also, too, your expectation of your agent should be to see houses the first day it's on the market. This market is no joke, and it moves very fast. There's homes that I've seen come on the market on Wednesday at 9 a.m., and they're under contract by 4 p.m. that same day. So your agent should be showing you houses as soon as it gets on the market, and you too should be very involved in your home buying search, and you should be seeing houses as soon as they get on the market as well, because on that third, fourth day, sometimes it's gone. Also, too, if you have 10 things on your list, I always tell my clients, expect to get at least 5 to 6 things on that list. I know. And I'm not asking you to settle. I promise I'm asking you to settle. Even me, my first house, it only checked off 2 things on my list. And that's just because I wanted to purchase something and I was trying to work inside of a budget. So on that note, I want to move on to the next portion. That's going to be, I found a home, now what? So finding a home, oh wait, I'm sorry, Jenny. It's okay. I found a home, now what? So when you find your house, it's very exciting. You're like, and I always tell my clients, they're like, how do I know when it's going to be the one? I said, oh, don't worry, we'll know. And they're like, well, how do you know? And so I know, because guess what? We walk in, they're like, Rebecca, write the offer. They're like, Rebecca, this is it. This is it. This is what I want. Write the offer, write the offer. And I'm like, okay. So there's a lot of steps that kind of go into that. So let's start talking about them now. So what you're going to do is you want your agent to pull comps. So some homes are highly listed higher than what they really should be at. So you want to make sure that you and your agent are both knowledgeable, knowing what the market is presenting itself. So if you have looking at a house for 400,000 and then you look up comps and the comps are only 330, I'm not saying not to offer them 400,000, right? But what I'm saying is you want to understand along with your agent that should this thing, you go under contract and you get to the appraisal process, should it not appraise? You know why. You saw that the numbers were not the right initially. So it's very important that your agent presents comps and shows you what to support the offer that you want to put in. You want to make sure that you have a conversation with your realtor. So it's not just them writing the contract. They're going over terms, and there's certain terms in the contract, such as earnest money, closing date, the appraisal dates, your financing contingency. I know this all sounds like a lot of jargon, but I want to go into it in depth in just a moment when we get to the next part. But it's a lot. So that's why I was saying initially, get a realtor, because your realtor is going to be the one fine-tuning you through every single step of the way. Inspections are so important. So did you know that we live in a state that does not require inspections? I know, crazy. Meaning you can buy a home and the lender is not going to say, hey, where's that inspection that you did? So that means that you don't have to, but you definitely should get an inspection. Inspections are going to do things like check the roof if there's a roof, if there's a if some I said if there's a roof, there's always going to be a roof, but shared. So when you have a condo versus a house, the condo association is the one that typically takes care of the roof. So that's why I said that. I want to clear that up. But checks the roof, checks the structure of the home, checks the plumbing, the electrical. Do you see there's all these things that you want to make sure that you know what you're buying? Have I ever had a client not do an inspection? No, but guess what? I have not done an inspection on an investment property because it was sold as is. And when I got the report back of what was going on after I closed, I was like, I wish I would have gotten an inspection, just so you can just have an idea. Sometimes sellers are not going to fix anything, but it's just good to know what you're getting yourself into. There's a part called the amendment to address concerns. And that's the part that your agent goes through the inspection and goes through a list of what they want the seller to fix. So that's why it's important to get the inspection. Next part is the appraisal. So during all this that I talked about, what's going on in the background is the lender is working through your file, making sure that you are good to go as far as your finances, and you got a job still, you got your cash to close still. And then another big thing is the appraisal. So the appraisal should typically be done within 21 days of you putting in the contract for the house once you get it. And it's going to come back, it's either going to come back right on the money, right on the contract price, or it's going to come back and it's going to say, no, it's not, it didn't appraise. And if you're not in some type of contingency period, remember I told you this is a lot of information, so it's like you should definitely use an agent. But if you're not in that contingency period, then either you pay the difference or you terminate and you lose your earnest money. And earnest money is like your deposit for the house. So it's just showing the seller that you're serious. And it's typically 1% of your purchase price. So if your purchase price is $300,000 for the house, your earnest money is typically 1%. So $3,000. So imagine if you lose that amount of money. Not fun. I don't care if it's $500. It is money that you will not get back. So that's why it's very important for you to use an agent, because we are aware of these contractual obligations more so than what a typical buyer would be. So let's talk about the purchase and sale agreement. Again, that's something that your agent is going to fill out. And it's something that there's not really a template online for that. So that's why you definitely need an agent, because we have all the forms, we have all the information that your lender is going to need to keep the transaction going. So we made it to the closing table. Now what? So I'm going to go ahead and say this because I actually have a very current situation going on right now. I'm supposed to have a closing today, and it's not happening until later. And I wanted to, and my clients said, Rebecca, you said that this was going to be stressful. And I was like, I know. They're like, this is a whole nother level of stress. So I say this, and I say this with the most sincerity. If you're somebody that really needs control over every single thing, this is not going to be the situation you want to get into. And the reason why is because you have no control. The only control you have is really looking at the houses, kind of negotiating the contract. It is a seller's market. So really it's kind of like you're doing whatever the seller wants you to do. And then you just get your house. And I always tell my clients, no matter how stressful the situation was or how stressful the transaction was, once you get to the closing table, if you're somebody that can let stuff go, you forget, you're like, I'm happy. I got my house. I'm not worried about it. But again, please know that this is a situation where you cannot be in control of everything. And you kind of just have to let stuff go. So, that is it for Home Buying 101. We'll go on to home selling. Excuse me for just one moment. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold. It's not COVID, I promise. So home selling 101, deciding to sell. What's your motivation? This is very important for your agent to ask you, what is your motivation? A lot of times that can get lost in the transaction. So it's good to explicitly explain to your agent that I want to sell because I want to make this amount of money. That's typically what the motivation is for sellers. But also too, it's I want to move to a different city, or you know what? Tired of this house. I found another house that I like. So it's very important to let your agent know what your motivation is. Interviewing agents. My rule of thumb is to interview at least 3 agents. And the reason why is because every agent is different. The way that I do business is different than, so-and-so down the street. So I want you to interview the agent that sells a lot in your neighborhood. I want you to interview them. People like to choose them first because they assume that they know everything. But the thing with that is sometimes some people get complacent and they're not the best agent just because they've sold the most in the neighborhood. So interview your first agent as the person in the neighborhood. Second agent, a referral. So somebody like me, maybe my name isn't on every single for sale sign in your neighborhood, but because you met me here tonight or you met me before or referred to me from a family member or friend, you're like, I want to see what Rebecca has to say about this. And then the third agent, if it's a family friend or somebody that you know that you kind of just want to give a chance, interview them. But all three of those interviews should definitely be held within the same week. And the reason why is because after that, it's going to be, we all present differently. It's going to be a lot of information. So you want to kind of remember what each agent said. Okay, once you've chosen your agent, understanding the market, it's very important to know where we are right now in the market. And just to let you know, we are still in a seller's market. It's not the same seller's market that was the seller's market earlier this year or even this time last year. There are some give and take, and that's why I put that in the presentation, because that's where we are right now. There is some give and take. So whereas last year, if I as a listing agent, if I got a contract that had a buyer asking the seller to pay closing costs, I'd be like, like we would pass on it because that wasn't the market for that. We had offers $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 over asking for nothing, literally nothing. So why would the seller choose an offer that's asking for something? Do you see what I'm saying? But now we are in a give and take position where it is still a seller's market. And if your house only has one offer, we want to work with that offer. Typically, the first offer is the best offer. And I know that sounds, interesting, but that's a saying in our industry. Typically, it is. Studies have shown the first offer, typically that buyers are the most serious and the most willing to negotiate with you. Negotiation is I win, you win, not I win, you lose. Understandable? All right. So getting ready to list. So it's important that your house shows well from the curb. Curb appeal truly matters. Even if you know that it's the most sought after house in the neighborhood and there's no other listings in the zip code and it's the only house in the market, you still want to have a great condition. Great conditions definitely do sell faster. I have noticed that whenever, the paint is chipped and the carpet is worn, you give buyers more of a reason to ask for something. But when you show up pristine and ready to go on the market and the house shows great, typically you get the offer that you want. So what to expect when on the market? This part is very serious because I'm sure you all, have seen kind of like the uptick in crime and whatnot in our city and in our state. And it's very disheartening. But I want you to know that when you put your house in the market, random people do not have access to your home. Only licensed realtors have access to your home. Your listing agent, unless you require them to, is not going to be at every showing. So what will happen is there will be let's say we have buyer agent Becky. She's showing your house. She is going to make an appointment with you, with your agent, and she's going to say, hey, can I show my client's house at 6:30 tonight? If that doesn't work for you, then you let your agent know, like, hey, that doesn't work. And they're talking to your agent. Your agent's going to ask you that, and then you're going to say, you know what, that doesn't work. Let me suggest another time. Or you can have an open house. Typically, homes go on the market Thursdays and Fridays. So buyers can come in through the weekend. And then finally on Monday, we'll have an opportunity, as we call it, if we're in multiple offers, we'll reach out to all the agents and we'll say, hey, please submit your buyer's offer. We got multiple offers. We're deciding by Tuesday. So it's very important that you let your agent know, when are you okay with showing? You're probably wondering, could I just not show my house at all? I've been met with that situation where, I see I'm buyer agent Becky and I'm looking up and I'm seeing that, oh, wow, they said no showings until the contract. And just know the contract is just a contract. You have a period called due diligence that allows the buyer I call it the change your mind period. Basically, if the sky was blue today, I can change my mind and walk out of this contract. So during that time, that's when the buyer's going to be walking through your house, getting the inspection, doing all things like that. So yes, you can show your house. You can you can't put your house on the market and not have to show it, but eventually people are going to want to come into your house. And if your fear because of COVID and monkeypox and other things like that are going around is that you're going to get sick, I would advise that you say no shoes. And even me, I hate when people come in my house with shoes. Because it just tracks outside just dirt and mess. And then also too, you can require them to wear a mask and wear gloves. But I say this, it's better for you to prepare for that versus ask them when they get there, because it's a lot. Once you're looking at a whole bunch of houses, sometimes you forget, so it's good when I have listings, I provide the mask, I provide the shoe covers, and the hand sanitizer, whatever my clients need. So yeah, we have a contract. Now what? So you're probably wondering, okay, once you get a contract, what goes on from there? Kind of the same thing as I talked about in the home buying. All the terms matter. It's not just price. And it's so funny because all my clients, when they get the contract, they're like, "Oh, look at that price." I'm like, "Okay, but now look, they want to close 60 days from now." They're like, "Oh no." I'm like, "Mm-hmm." They're like, they want you to move out before closing." They're like, "Oh, absolutely not." So it's very important that you are looking at all the terms on the contract, because all of the terms do matter. Okay. Closing time. So typically closing time is fun. Honestly, for sellers, it's fun. And the reason why is because you're about to get paid. So you're like, yay, like I'm so excited to, really wrap this up and move and get my money. If you agreed to do anything such as repairs or replacement, anything of that nature, you have to do that before closing. And if you don't do that before closing, you will be in default. And default, again, this is a very litigious situation, right? Buying a home, there's legal contracts involved. So if you said you're going to do something and it's in paper and it's on writing and special stipulations, you have to do it. You can't just decide, not going to do it. And typically there's a time frame to do it, which is typically, for me, I say a week before closing, so we can verify that it's done and then we can move on from that. Another thing is when you get to the closing table, sometimes, again, it could be stressful on your end too. So imagine the buyer stress, the seller stress, everybody's stressed. And as agents, we do our best to buffer everybody being stressed out. But I want you to know that, at the end of the day, it's truly up to you to, again, let go and just let the situation flow as it's supposed to flow. And when you're done, you're done. Last thing that I want to say is that you cannot change your mind. Once you have signed that contract, not at the closing table, I'm talking initially when you go under contract, which is typically 30 days prior to closing, you can't change your mind after that. You have to go through with it. If you do decide to change your mind, the buyer can sue you for specific performance, meaning they can take your home. It's a lot to that. Have I ever gone to that point? Almost. And it's very stressful, but at the end of the day, everybody wants to close and everybody wants to be happy. So that's it. Now time for question and answer. Oh, real quick, this is news that you can use. We are going to go back to this. This is if anybody has any questions about mortgage rate projections, where have mortgage rates been almost over the last 100 years, what experts say about the housing market, and also too, down payments, because some of you might have a question about that. But Jenny, I am ready for the questions that we have. And let's just go back to the slide if anybody has any questions about what I just talked about.
Great. Thank you so much, Rebecca. I was furiously taking notes while also trying to make sure I was supporting you appropriately. So let's get started. I've got some great questions coming in from the audience. And y'all, just a reminder, we'll still take questions. If you're watching via Facebook Live, submit them via Facebook Live, or you can use the Ask a Question button and we can get some more of this great information from Miss Rebecca. So to get us started, first question. Can I still buy a home if I have student loans?
Great question. When I tell you that is literally the number one question, and yes, you can. I have helped doctors, lawyers, engineers, people who you expect to have, almost 6 figures of debt in loans, and they've purchased a house. I know that there's some type of intrepidation when it comes to applying for a home loan. And I want to just urge everyone to just kind of, and this is coming from a sympathetic place, just get over it. I too, when I went from full-time, employment to self-employment, I was nervous about getting a home loan as well. But the only way we're going to know if you can or if you can't or how to prepare is if you apply.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. Next question. Okay. Are there programs to buy with a tax ID? If so, what are the requirements and the average rates for those types of loans?
Good question. So tax ID, I'm assuming this person is asking about purchasing with like a entity like a business LLC. I'm assuming that's what they're talking about. Yes. However, when you apply in for a home using anything other than your personal name and your social security number, the lender is going to already know this is a business property. So they're going to already kick you up on that down payment. So it's going to be anywhere between 10 to 20%. I don't know if I covered this earlier, but there's a lot of different lenders and a lot of different programs. So I'm speaking based off of experience. Disclaimer, I'm not a lender. So whatever I say, rely on it, but also to fact check it, make sure that it aligns with what your lender says. But yeah, you can buy a house with a tax ID, or a LLC or S corp. You just have to. They're going to know it's for a business, and they're going to pretty much probably ask you to put down more money.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. This question is coming from Facebook Live. You might have seen me post a comment earlier. Tiffany had complimented great points on choosing a realtor, so I'm glad that spoke to the audience. Tiffany's also asking, if I want to buy multiple homes, some as investments, can you give me any advice or tips?
Okay, good question. So my advice would be the reserve, so your savings. When I bought my investment property, I had to put down 20%. And just to dispel a rumor that I think is in a lot of people's minds, you do not have to put down 20% to buy a personal home. The lowest down payment is 0%, then 3, then 3.5, then 5, then 10, then 20. You do not have to put down 20%. Now, if you are buying multiple properties, because you become a risk, right? That's what lenders think it is. They're seeing all these because they're going to look you up. They're going to do a title search. And and it's so funny. There's ins and outs of being a realtor that people just don't know about. People will say, "Oh, I never bought a house before." Then the lender will say, "What all? Where are all these houses coming from?" When you cannot buy a house in this country and no one know about it. So it is important that you understand what your financial ability is going to be. So a lot of times when you're trying to buy multiple properties, this is going to be 10 to 20%. Another thing too to look out for, get that inspection like I was saying earlier, very important. Get 2 to 3 quotes as far as lenders, and then as far as contractors. I don't think anyone should ever buy a home without having a contractor tell you what is wrong or what needs to be done with the home, because there's so much risk there. And once you own the home, it's yours. You cannot give it back.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. Okay. Got lots of questions coming in. This is awesome. All right. So this is from Lawanda. I'm interested in purchasing investment properties, and I'm not clear on the approval process when I already have a mortgage. What is the process for getting approved for a loan when you already have a mortgage?
Great question. And you know what? I want to even tell, and this was for Lawanda, correct? Let me even say this. Did you know that you're a first-time home buyer after every 3 years you haven't bought a home? That's something that they don't tell people at all. But you are a first-time home buyer after every 3 years you don't buy a home. So there's some types of incentives for that. I would say if you are going to buy multiple investment properties, I'm going to say have that money. And that's only because investment loans are different than regular home loans. They look into way more. They have a lot more questions, and it's because it's just a lot more liability.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. Next question. Are house auctions, and this is from Sarah, are house auctions good avenues for first-time home buyers?
Thank you, Sarah, for asking that question. Little tip for everybody on the line. On the first Tuesday of every single month in your county, there are homes that are sold on the courthouse steps. And all you have to do is show up. There's a newspaper called the Daily Report, and it it shows all the houses that are going to be for sale on the first. So yesterday was the auction sale, and some houses sold, some houses didn't sell, because by that time some people can get their house out of foreclosure and get their house taken off the courthouse steps. So it's frustrating, because when you go, you have an idea of, oh, I see this. I went one time and I was like, oh, I'm about to get all these houses, and all of them were paid for, or were overbidded by me. So I say this, and because you cannot go to another thing too, you cannot go to the home before you buy it. You can't go to the home. You cannot get an inspection. You literally have to just buy it blind, sold as is. So you really don't know what you're getting yourself into. My best advice is to drive by the house, not go in the house, not knock in the house, not disturb anybody. Just drive by, look at it. And, if you feel like it's the house for you, then, I say go ahead and go to the courthouse steps and offer on it. But there's a lot of risk in real estate investment. That's one thing that I want everybody to know. There's a lot of risk. And when you buy a house at the auction, you're walking in blind. And another thing I want to pinpoint on, Sierra, was that when you're a first time home buyer, kind of like how I explained earlier, it's stressful. Like, it's stressful. And if you know that you're not going to be able to mentally deal with buying a home, and then now seeing what the issues are and moving in or not moving in, I would say I would shy away from auction homes, because you don't know what you're going to get. A lot of times the people that lose their homes, they're pissed. I mean, I'd be pissed too if I lost my home. So you'll walk in the house and there'll be holes everywhere, and oh my, dog feces everywhere. I mean, I have seen the most, or it was squatted. So there's just a lot of just stuff and junk, and it smells like something that you don't want to ever smell. So that's my only thing about buying a house at an auction, is that you truly do not know what you're getting yourself into. But there have been some great gems that people have purchased. So,
wow. This is so interesting. Okay, so that was about auction homes. We'll switch gears for just a second. This question is coming from Stacy. Stacy's asking, do you need a realtor when purchasing a new build home?
I freaking love that question. I should have put that on the questions that I was going to think about asking everybody or putting out there. But anyway, sorry. I love that question. And it's because that is the biggest misconception that I hear. So remember, we talked about buyer's agent and listing agent. So when you are purchasing a new construction home, there's one agent, the one that you meet on site, right? Who do you think that agent represents? They represent the builder, not you. So everything's going great. You're like, yeah, oh, that's my house. That's the granite I want. That's the quartz I want. That's the flooring I want. Everything's going great. The agent is, because she or he is like, yes, sign. Let's get this done. Do you know where the problems begin? The building phase, the closing phase. That's when you can't reach that agent anymore. You're like, what happened to Jenny? She's not answering the phone anymore. She's not texting me back. I asked her, because the builder is 3 months behind on my build, I asked her if he can credit me, a microwave, and she's like, no, we're not doing anything. Either you take it or leave it. That's why you want an agent to represent you. And again, it is no money out of your pocket to use another agent. Builder agents cannot offer you a lesser purchase amount because you're not using an agent. That is illegal. And if anybody's ever been told that, don't use an agent because, come call me, because that is illegal. They're not supposed to do that, but they do that because they're trying to save money. But again, the builder is who pays the buyer's agent, and it's free of charge for you. This can be very litigious. You want to make sure that you have an agent that represents you. Also, too, that builder agent is not going to go over that contract with you. They're not. I will, though, because again, I represent you. And that contract is, if there's anybody that's on here that's worked with me, they know our contract is ironclad, and it is over 60 pages, and the font is like Times New Roman 8. You are not going to want to go through that contract. I work with, I would say, almost every builder in the city. So I have like a little Rolodex of basically contract points to note. It's very important to work with an agent.
Wow. And I think that's such a great question for the Atlanta area too, because around every corner there's some sort of new build. So
right.
Wow, this is so interesting. Okay, I've got plenty of questions. So this one is coming from Pearl. Have you worked with sellers who have taken a cash deal with a company like Mark Spain or Open Door? If so, what advice do you have to sellers considering something like that?
That is a great question. I'm sorry, Pearl. Yes, Pearl. That's a great question, Pearl. And the reason why is because, right now we're in the world of, we call them iBuyers. So, back then, my parents, when they're looking for a house, their realtor would come to the house and present, like, a handbook of houses that are available, and then we would just, pick and choose, and then we go see them. But now we're in a very interesting place where you can literally go online and find your house. Sometimes my clients find their house before me, and you're probably wondering, well, what's your job? My job, and I might go viral for this if this goes, online and people are my job as a realtor, I would say 20% finding you a home. I'm serious, 20%. And the reason why is because life has changed. You do not have to go through a notebook anymore or a newspaper to find a house. You can literally go online. And so I might be sleeping at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're looking at houses, like, oh, I found my house. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I say 20%. What we do is the other 80% of the work, which is the contracts, the negotiating, and making sure that the timelines are correct, making sure that the obligations of the contract are correct. So going back to the whole iBuyer situation, Mark Spain, Open Door, all those are for iBuyers and for iSellers. Basically, they give you an offer, what they believe is going to be what your house is worth, and they reel you in with the whole, it's easy, we just give you an offer, you just take and you move out. But can I tell you how pissed off people are when they see that their house is for sale 30 days later and for $50,000 more? They're pissed. They're like, you mean to tell me I could have made $50,000 more? And they say, oh, you avoid real estate commissions, you avoid, repair, things like that. And sometimes, yeah, absolutely, you will avoid those things. But I think it's also good to go back to what I was saying about interviewing those three agents. So if you're going to add in a Mark Spain, a Open Door, like a cash offer people, at least talk to 2-3 other agents that are going to break down all the costs associated with selling a home, so you can kind of see, like, do I want to give up this money because I don't want to be stressed, or do I want to work with somebody that's going to help me maximize my proceeds?
Great. And I actually have a great question to feed into that, coming from this is a username, so I'm not quite sure what their name is, but it's coming off of YouTube. As a buyer, what are some interview questions to ask when you're searching for a realtor?
That's a great question. It's so funny because someone interviewed me once before as a buyer, and I was like, why are they? But now it matters. It truly matters, because the way the industry has gone, and I actually wanted to kind of go into this a little bit. So this is a good question. But I was like, we're going to talk way too much on this subject. But real estate's a very small world. Very small world, meaning there is a certain circle of us that we see each other constantly. And if your agent does not have a good rapport with other agents, not saying, you're not going to get your contract accepted, because, that would be illegal again too. But I'll be honest, there's agents that, you'll see their name and you'll be like, oh no. Or they'll see your name and they'll be, oh no. So you want to ask your agent, do you have a good rapport with other agents on the market? Are you kind? Are you agreeable? Are you easy to work with? Are you kind-hearted? Do you have a big ego? Do you let stuff go? Because real estate, sometimes the best brokers, they'll tell you it's all about ego. Sometimes when clients can't come together for that I win, you win negotiation, it's because because your agents are talking to each other. So imagine you said, hey, Rebecca, it's okay, we'll leave the fridge. And imagine I go back to the agent and say, no, we're not going to do that, because I'm trying to, stalemate them. And then they say, you know what, we're going to walk away. And you're like, wait. How did that happen? Sometimes it's because of agents' egos. So ask them about their ego, ask them about their temperament, ask them how many years they've been in the business, ask them about a situation that, they thought that they couldn't overcome, that they overcame. Ask them about the negotiation skills. Ask them, this is a good one. Ask them, do they even like negotiation? Because that's all real estate's about. If your agent is shy and doesn't like negotiation, we're in a hard market for buyers. You want your agent to be assertive. So, yeah.
Great. No, that's really interesting. The small world comment, that totally makes sense. What did your colleagues think about you? That's a good one. This question is coming from Ty. As it pertains to real estate cycles of the market throughout time, including recovery, expansion, hypersupply, and recession, what stage are we entering as of this current time?
Good question.
And Ty has a suspicion. Do you want me to share it with you now?
Yes.
Okay, so Ty's suspicions tell him recession, but he could be wrong.
Okay. That's a good suspicion. And if you don't mind, Jenny, let's go back to the last slide, because I want to pinpoint on what experts say about the housing market and how it won't crash. So because I just turned 30 years old. So I got licensed in 2016. So in 2008, 2009, 2010, during the housing market crash, I was going into college. I was going to Georgia State. I didn't care about what crashed, what recession, so it's interesting now, more than 10 years later, I'm looking at it, I'm just like, I actually am interested in this. What happened then is not what's happening now. What's happening now is they are trying to, and let me make a disclaimer, I'm not an economist. I do not claim to be. So please fact check my information. Go to keepingcurrentmatters.com. That is where us realtors, we pull all of our information. This information is tried and true. They present it on NPR. So I'm going based off of that. But there was an oversupply of homes, meaning when I go back and look at how many homes were on the market during that time, it was a lot. They were begging people to buy homes, meaning you see a home on the market for 318 days, whereas days on the market right now are 30 to 60 days. So where we are right now, we're in a correction. They are trying to correct the low interest rates, the incentive that they did 2 years ago, up to a year ago, hoping that our financial market will not crash. And right now, they're just trying to fix the inflation. So that's where we are right now. I still think it's still an amazing time to buy. If you look up at the screen at the top left, mortgage rate projections, mortgage rates are expected to stay in the same 5% hopefully over the next year. And then if you look right under that, I know it's so small and tiny, maybe if Jenny can zoom in, but if not, at the bottom of the graph, it shows where we are right now. Look at that. Look how it's kind of been leveled. And then that year, I forgot, I don't know what year that was. I think it was like 1970 something, but we're still in the right range. When I bought my first house in 2018, my interest rate was 4.8. And I think the lowest at that time was like 4.2. So, we still are not that high. I want everybody, and I'll say this in the most sincere way, forget about that 2-3%. Forget about it. I didn't even get it. So me as a realtor, I wasn't buying a home at that time. So I didn't even get it. I bought a home end of last year and my interest rate was not that low. So, but the house that I sold, that I bought 5 years ago at that 4.8%, I'm very honest realtor. I made over 6 figures. So people get scared because they're like, I can't get that 2-3%. But what you're missing out on is the years of equity that you can make. I don't know there's no other place in my life where I've made 6 figures before on just one transaction. So, it's very, very, very important that I think that you should still buy a home.
This is great stuff, Rebecca. Okay, I've got about 10 questions left. I love seeing the interaction, and it's cool to fire them at you and see what you have to say. Okay, so this one is coming from Chris. Chris says, what options would you suggest to your clients that are looking for investment properties? And you might have touched on some of this, Rebecca, so just let me know if you want another question. But what options would you suggest to your clients that are looking for investment properties, both public and private listings or auctions, which I know you touched on?
What would my suggestion be about finding these properties? Okay.
Yeah. What would you suggest to your clients that are looking for investment properties, both public and private listings?
When it comes to the private listings, If you're able to get that inspection, I think you should get it. Even if you're able to walk it with a contractor, I still think you can get it, because a lot of these private entities that are selling these houses, they have never been to them. They've never walked into them. They're just they ask some day laborer to put a lockbox on the door and then they're out. They never. So you want to know what you're getting yourself into. Another thing too, that down payment is so important. I'm saying this to all my first-time home buyers. Don't worry about that 20%. But if you want to buy a second, third home or invest property or a vacation home, know that the stakes are going to be higher and you're going to have to put more money down. So just go ahead and plan on having that 10 to 20%, because there's no point to look if you don't have the funds to do so. Duplexes are a good idea. A lot of people are buying ranches that have a basement. And so what you can do is you transform the basement into like a 1-bedroom apartment that's livable. And then you live upstairs. So you can do that. I would just advise that you work with the realtor, because they're going to be the best to advise you. And that's another thing too. I used to work with investors, and sometimes investors can be a little sneaky and work with multiple realtors. As long as you just make that up front, maybe even pay your realtor a retainer fee. Say, hey, look, Rebecca, because I know that you're not going to be able to see everything and send everything, I will pay you a retainer fee if you find me, these certain properties. And if not, then we can amicably split. But it is important to let your realtor know, just if you're working with multiple people, because, we don't want to waste our time.
Great. You got me over here thinking about my real estate adventure. Okay. I've got a couple of questions coming from Shamika. And I'll start with, can you talk a little bit about the difference between FHA and conventional loans, and maybe which you would suggest is best?
Good question. Let me sip my tea real quick, because that's a very deep question. And I'm so excited to help you with that, Shamika. So FHA loans, it's a government loan. That is the first loan that I got. I like FHA loans because they have lesser qualifications. So you can have a 580 credit score, which conventional, they won't even look at you if you don't have a 620. So that's why people go FHA. They have a more lax and forgivable debt to income ratio. So you can have more debt than typically you would if you had a conventional loan. Your down payment is 3.5% to 0%. There are some FHA loans that will give you 0%, but 3.5% to 0%. Now, FHA, there is a loan limit, and it's like 567. It's some crazy number, but you can't buy like $1 million house with the FHA loan. There is a certain type of loan limit. Conventional, and let me just give you another insider real quick on FHA before I go. Because it is a government-backed loan, and because the idea is that the person qualifying, not saying they can't qualify for conventional, but they're deciding to go FHA. Sometimes some agents, when they see the FHA contingency, loan contingency attached to their contract, they're like, I'll be honest, they're like, no, they're like, I'm not. We don't want to work with the FHA loan, because FHA requires there to be certain repairs. A great example, I have a contract right now where the FHA came back and they said that we had to fix the siding. And I was like, wow, I've never happened to me before. This is the first in 6 years. Whereas with conventional, they probably wouldn't ask you for that. So conventional, you have to have a higher credit score. So 620, I always tell my clients, let's get a 660 or better, because we don't want to be, so close to the cusp, because they are going to run your credit about 2-3 times while you're under contract. Oh, let me talk about that real quick. So credit pulls, I'm sure that might be a question that might come up. Yes, it is a hard credit pull when they pull your credit for a loan. However, if you are shopping for a loan within a 15-day period, so starting September 1st until September 15th, when you're shopping for a loan that period, you can apply for 100 million loans. It's only going to run as one hard credit inquiry on your credit. And I'm sure you all know that the more inquiries, the lower your score goes. So just make sure within that 15 days, they are going to pull your credit again in the middle of your loan process. And they're going to pull your credit again, maybe the end. So you might, in this whole entire process of buying a home, might have at least 4 credit pulls. There's no way to avoid that. It just is what it is. And then is there another loan option? Okay, so since the pandemic has happened, we have more loan options. So there's bank statement loans, which you have to have at least a 620 credit score. But I heard somebody, they said they were doing it for 560. So there's so many different lenders. And that's why you want to work with a realtor. Realtors that have been in this business for years, we have so many lenders. So you can call me and tell me your situation. I'm like, I got somebody for you. Oh, this person's gonna work. That's how I am as an agent. I hear your situation and I push you to where I believe is going to be the best fit for you. Bank of America might not work for everybody, but Chase might, and I don't use big banks, honestly. I sometimes do, but majority of my lenders are small, mom and pop. What's the other one? Credit unions are a little bit more affordable. They don't charge such a large origination fee, which is it's like a cost to lend on the loan. So, and what's another one? That's about it. Real quick, because I know there's probably a question about down payment assistance programs. Let me talk about that real quick. Down payment assistance programs. AKA first-time homebuyer programs. People always ask me, well, what's in it for me? What can I get to be a first-time homebuyer? And I say all this with love and again, sincerity. Nothing really. And when I say nothing, I mean that you don't get something for nothing. So typically, if you have a zero down payment, your interest rate is going to be at least 1% higher. 1% higher than what your interest rate was quoted. So let's say you get no down payment and they give you a 4.2 interest rate. And sorry, let's say you get a down payment, they give you a 4.2 interest rate. And then let's say you're like, you know what? I don't want a down payment. That interest rate is going to go up to like 5.2, 5.6, because at the end of the day, you're not putting any money down. So you are more of a risk. So again, first time homebuyer programs, AKA no down payment programs, you're paying for it somewhere. You're paying for it somewhere.
Great stuff. And you are, imagine this, you kind of are anticipating what folks are wondering. In an effort to stay on time, I think we maybe have time for 2 more questions, but you are definitely touching on some of the questions that I'm getting to. Specifically, to elaborate a little bit, Ugo has a question. He was wondering a little bit about the new homeowner situation, and I think you've kind of talked on that, but he's curious and he's heard, is there some type of way to use your 401k? Do you have any insight on that for using it to help you make a down payment on a home?
Great question. Yes, you are allowed to borrow from your 401k to purchase a home. There are some tax liabilities after that, which again, disclaimer, not a lender, not a tax professional, and also not economist. So there are some obligations that you will have if you take out a certain amount of money. So it's very important to talk to whoever you're withdrawing your 401k from. If you have a financial advisor, talk to them, and also talk to your lender. But you are definitely able to take from your 401k to purchase your home.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. And before I give you one final question, just for the audience, y'all, this is recorded and will be shared. So I know that was a couple of questions. So if you're furiously taking notes, don't worry. We'll be sharing this presentation, and Rebecca is looking forward to hearing from all of you directly. So for our final question, I think this is a really relevant one. And so, Natasha, thank you for getting this question in. How has the rise of Airbnb and short-term rentals affected the housing stock? Is there a way to determine how many homes are owner-occupied versus short-term rentals?
That is a good question, and I want to answer the end before I forget everything else. Is there a way? It depends. It depends. Actually, let me fact check it, and we can talk offline if you'd like for whoever asks this question. But there's not a way for like a consumer to see if their home is owner occupied. There's a lot of information on the internet. Like as a realtor, we have this system called Remind. And if I put your address in, I can see the whole neighborhood and I can see how many houses are owner occupied and are not. But everything is an assumption. You never know. And a lot of times I think how I make that assumption is because some people might have PO boxes, so they'll say mail me at this PO box. So I think it's to be assumed that it's not owner occupied, but I have a PO box, and that's just because I just don't want anybody to know where I live. So, for that question, I would say I would rely on the lender, because the lenders have to have certain title obligations. And in order for them to pull title, it sounds like I'm talking a lot of jargon, but this is, I don't know how to explain it better than, it's called a title obligation. They look and they see how many units, if you're buying in a condo, they look and see how many units are owner occupied versus occupied. And then the first part of the question, what to look, has it messed up the market? I will say there's been a huge influx of townhomes, HOA communities, condos that have come on the market because Airbnb has changed the rules. And also, too, HOAs have changed the rule. There's not one HOA in this state of Georgia that I know about that will allow a short-term rental. HOAs have completely gone rid of the ability for short-term rentals. Are there people still legally doing it? Absolutely. Are they getting caught? Yes and no. There's certain short-term rentals where, I reside and they're not supposed to be doing that. So, it's just, it's one of those things where I always tell my clients, you want to be on the side of what you're supposed to do. And the reason why is because, should the HOA community email you and say, hey, I know you're doing Airbnb out of your unit and you're not supposed to, they can put a lien on your house. They can take your house from you, literally. And so my biggest rule of thumb is for anybody want to do Airbnb, make sure that the HOA will allow short-term rentals. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you now, they don't. They will, and some will allow a short-term rental is anything that's less than 6 months. So some HOA communities, they will allow you to do a 6-month lease or more. So that's fine. Renting out your place is fine. You have to ask. There's some that you can't. You literally, there's no ability to rent your place out at all legally. You can if you want to, but I will say this: if they come for you, they're going to come for you. And then there was one other thing I was going to say about Airbnb. I forgot. Basically, just fact check. Why would you buy I've heard some people like, yeah, I bought this new condo, and then they said I can't do Airbnb. So what do you do with it? You just lost all that money. Now you got to sell it back. And it's no point. Oh, neighborhoods without HOA, you can do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. So Decatur, some of these, Decatur as in like, close to downtown Decatur, but like, up in really honestly anywhere in Decatur, there's not a lot of neighborhoods that have HOAs. So if it doesn't have the HOA, I say go for it.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. It's obvious that you have been doing this and are super passionate about it. And so it's really cool to see your experience and how it's brought you this far. I don't have any further questions for you.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Jenny, for having me this evening. I am so excited to have been given this opportunity. I love Georgia State, and I feel like this is a topic that, I had to dispel all the rumors and all the misinformation on. Jenny, you produce great programs. The first one that I went to was Third Thursday a couple of weeks ago, and I had an amazing time. For my alumni students and just, anybody affiliated with Georgia State, please get involved with your alumni association and events going on. It feels good to give back, but also to get back. So I met so many people that I connected with and I was able to network with at the last Third Thursday. So anything that Georgia State sends out, I think you should definitely go to it. But that's all I have for you all this evening.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. Bye. Have a good evening.
All right, everybody. Well, on behalf of the Georgia State University Alumni Association, thank you for tuning in. The website is scrolling on the bottom of the screen. Make sure you check it out. We keep all of our programs on there, and it's very current. I'd love to invite you to our next Third Thursday. It's actually next week. And Rebecca talked a little bit about that, and she's so right. It's such a fun, lighthearted program. You really come as you are when you get off work. It's a really cool way to casually network. It's just $10 for 2 drinks and appetizers. And it's our long-standing program. It's where I personally started getting involved at the Alumni Association. So mark your calendars. It's every third Thursday, and we advertise that on our website and social media channels. And lastly, believe it or not, homecoming is on the rise. So mark your calendars for the week of October 24th through 29th. We're doing yoga on the field. We have our homecoming tailgate. We have a young alumni mixer. We have a lot going on. And so I really am looking forward to seeing each and every one of you there. Thank you again for joining us tonight.